So we're going to take a look into these questions where you are being asked to find the probability of at least one event occurring. So you might have come across this question in the quiz from last week where it was asking, a deck of 30 cards, 5 of them cost 1. What are the chances you draw at least one that costs 1 in a hand of 4? So we're thinking about this. Immediately, our sort of natural way to think about this question is to ask, so we need to know the probability of getting 1 plus the probability of getting 2 plus the probability of getting 3 plus the probability of getting 4, right? That would be sort of the logical way to think about this one to start. To think about getting 1 card, we could draw it 4 different ways, right? We could draw it right away and then miss the other 3. We could miss the first, draw the second. We could miss the first 2. We could miss the first 3. These are all the ways that I could draw 1 card. Then I'd have to look at the ways to draw 2, right? And so on. And I kind of don't really want to go about it this way because, this is already getting to be kind of complicated, and we're going to have to calculate all of these different probabilities here, and there's got to be sort of a simpler way to go about this question where we're being asked at least 1. One idea here is that the probability of getting at least 1, what is the complement of that, right? What's the complement of getting at least 1? Well, the complement of getting at least 1 has to be getting none, right? Because that would be the opposite. If I get 1 or more, that would be event A. So if I get 0, that would be the complement. And we're going to use a rule of probability here, which is that A plus A complement, or sorry, just to be more clear, P of A plus P of A complement is equal to 1, right? Because any event plus the probability of its complement is 1, because either the event happens or doesn't happen. So in this case, we've got a much easier way of going about this question is to rearrange this formula and realize that the probability of getting something that's at least one playable card is 1 minus the probability that we don't, right? And you'll find it's quite easy to calculate the probability that we don't get a 1. That's much easier than trying to go through all the different ways to get it. How can we not get a 1? We can not get a 1 only if we fail all 4 draws, right? So we get 4 cards that cost a different amount each draw. Let's analyze what are the chances, so on the first draw, what are the chances we get a card that is not a 1? This is what we need to know so we can work this out. Now we know there are 5 cards cost 1. We know there are 25 cards that don't. And we know there are 30 cards total. This tells us that the first draw, there are 25 ways to do it out of 30 possibilities. So our first draw, there's 25 out of 30. The next draw, there's 1 less card that doesn't cost 1, and there's also 1 less card total. So we're only down to 24 out of 29, right? If you imagine we've already taken 1 into our hand, so there's only 29 cards left to choose from. Of those 29, only 24 are now cards which do not cost 1. So one of them's already in our hand. You can see where this is going, hopefully. We start to do the next 2 of them, and we just keep subtracting 1 from the numerator and the denominator, and we keep multiplying by these different chances. So again, this would be the chance that my first card, then my second card, given that my first card was not a 1, then my third card, given that my first 2 were not 1s, and then my fourth card, given that none of them were 1s. This I calculated before, just called it this number here, is 0.378. So this is the probability that we get no cards that cost 1. To finish this, all we need to do now is say that the probability that we get a card that costs 1, let's say probability at least 1 is equal to 1 subtract probability no cards that cost So we get 1 subtract this number, which is equal to 1 subtract that number over here. So we can conclude, therefore, there is a 62.72% chance that you draw at least one card which costs 1. So these questions, keep in mind, a good strategy for these ones is always to sort of think to yourself, can I go back? Can I think about it in terms of the opposite? Can I get the opposite of what I'm looking for and then subtract it from 1? That's a good technique that will save time on a lot of these questions, especially if it says at least 1.